Barnard students. I am a journalist and podcast maker. The podcast I made that most people know is called The Daily from the New York Times. That was my first baby. I started that 9 years ago now at the New York Times. And before that, I worked at All Things Considered at NPR. And that is where I had gone right after graduation. I was like the weirdo who left New York and went to DC, and everybody else stayed in New York. And I worked my way up at NPR, and then left to make The Daily in 2017. And for the last 4-ish years, I have been a freelance journalist, making podcasts with newsrooms, individual folks, organizations. And I live in Portland, Maine. And it was snowing just a moment ago, and now it's sunny and lovely. So that's my weather report. And excited to hear from all y'all about anything media related.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, I'm Kira. I am class of 2020, and I graduated from Barnard with my BA in art history with a concentration in visual arts. Um, and I currently work as the awards coordinator at the National Book Foundation, um, supporting the award cycle and our big ceremony that happens in the fall every year. And before that, I um, basically spent the entirety of my early career before this point working in contemporary art galleries in New York, primarily mission-led, artist-run galleries that where I was able to move from gallery assistant to curatorial and production coordinator to archivist, um, kind of having my hand in some of the logistical sides, some of the database sides. Uh, what was most exciting, what I was able to start with, is working directly with artists to produce exhibitions, write curatorial statements, and handle some of those physical logistics and communications all the way. So yeah, that has led me to today, and I'm really excited to be here. And I live in Brooklyn, New York.
Hey everyone, I'm Isabelia. I am currently based in Mexico City, Mexico. Um, I am a journalist, critic, curator. Uh, been kind of working in the journalism and media space pretty much since I graduated. I'm a class of 2014. I studied sociology and ethnic studies. I was also a Mellon Mays Fellow while I was at Barnard. And yeah, I currently work as the music editor for Apple Music in for Mexico and Spanish-speaking Latin America. Before this role, I was a freelance journalist for about 4 years. I also held a contributing editor role at Pitchfork. I was an arts critic fellow at the New York Times. And then before that, I was also a music editor at a culture publication, Latino culture publication called Remezcla. So have had a variety of different kind of like newsroom experiences from like startup vibes to legacy newspaper to everything in between. So I'm really happy to answer any questions about that and just about life and media in general.
Thanks, y'all, for those introductions. I'm really pleased with the geographic spread that we have present as well. And Isabelia told us just before this that it's a balmy 73 degrees in Mexico City, so we can be silently jealous. I will say one additional bit about Isabelia's current role at Apple Music. It's not something that she can speak about publicly in terms of the ins and outs of her day-to-day. So anything with regard to the prolific and very impressive other publications that she wrote, edited for, by all means, fair game, anything that she mentioned and in the freelance world. So please direct any questions to her in the Q&A about that. First kind of opening question just to get things going. Inevitably, it's the how did you get to your most significant role, your current role or most significant role? What helped you get there? And that could be, I had this great internship at Barnard, or it could be something incredible happened after I left Barnard. Barnard doesn't have to be the nexus by any means. But what was the big stepping stone that helped you get there? And anyone can jump in.
Okay, I'll start because my answer is almost always Barnard. But I went to a lot of events like y'all are doing right now, and loved to hear from people who had been in my position as an undergrad and then had gone on and done these things that I wanted to do because it felt like, oh, I could just do this step and this step and this step, and then I could get to do what they're doing. Felt very attainable. Because I wanted to be a journalist, but I had no idea how to actually do that. So I would just talk to the people who came for those panels. I would use the Barnard Career Services, whatever, I guess now it's Beyond Barnard is what it's called. I would go there, and at that time we still had binders. You would flip through a binder and you'd get the media communications binder, and then you'd open it up and you'd see there's Isabelia, there's Kira, there's what like you would see the names and then you would reach out to them. So um I did that highly effectively. I mean, Barnard people will write you back. Like it is amazing. And so I just started finding people who were in places where I wanted to go. And then I would ask them advice, but also just like, I'm applying for this internship. Do you know someone? Right? Very specific asks of, can you like put my resume in front of this person? Or anybody who is in a position of power to do that, I would ask. Um, and and then when I got to the places where I was starting to be able to then give back, that's what I would do. So that's like the other side of it, right? Like coming to this kind of thing and making connections with people. So yeah, that was my, but then how did I get to my most significant job was really like um not so much Barnard related, but it had built all of my NPR stuff was built on Barnard relationships.
I mean, networking is what I'm hearing, and I think it kind of can feel like a bad word in so many ways. I think we really try to recast it as community building. But yes, would love to hear more. Kira, Isabella, thoughts?
Yeah, so for my most significant role, I would actually say it's one of the roles that one of my first roles at the first gallery I ever worked at, which was Larry. And it's now closed down, but it was very much a community space, primarily showing first exhibitions for underrepresented artists. And I was at Barnard when I started at Larry, and I cold emailed. And showed up and like got to know the owner and was able to kind of have my introduction into the gallery world. And before that, I did have an internship during my study abroad at Spike Art Magazine, because the editor and founder had come to Barnard for a talk, for all the art history majors. So I spoke to her while she was in New York. I like followed her around to her. She had a magazine opening later that night, and I went, made sure she knew my name, and then reconnected with her in Berlin. And that gave me kind of a first introduction to an independently run. I mean, most galleries are in some way independently run, but a um, small creative space. Spike also was a programming space in certain ways, where I was able to connect directly with people working in this industry, the art industry, and understand kind of the ins and outs and the curatorial language of a space like Spike and then like Larry, and be in conversation directly with these artists who um, ended up impacting my life so much. And all of that led to the other roles that I was able to take on in the years after, and the types of galleries I was able to join. So I would say that is my most significant role, in that it it set the tone for my entire pathway. And all of my experience in the gallery space, being able to be hands-on in so many different ways, it gave me a kind of a foundation and an arsenal of like communications, logistics, interpersonal skills that end up applying to so many parts of my current role. So in a way, it's all connected. And Barnard was the space of origin. It wouldn't have happened without those series of events.
For me, I feel like my answer is a little abstract, but hopefully I can break it down. Um, I think a lot of what helped me to get to my most significant role, which I would say was probably when I was at the Times, a lot of it was like developing my own voice and like making my own voice as a journalist known. Um, I think the landscape is very different now, but I think when I was starting out, you know, a lot of people were developing their voice on places like Twitter and, kind of like talking about topics that were like relevant or interesting to them and kind of chiming in on things that felt like timely. And I think there was a period like kind of late 2010s, I would say, when I was like very active in talking about like things that I thought really mattered and topics that I wanted to write about and think about. And I felt like during that time, I was able to really establish myself as a voice in this space. And I think, particularly, not many people, when I started out like 12 years ago now, like not many people were writing about Latin music in English in the way that they are now. And so at that time, I really felt like there was kind of like a gap. And I was like, well, I feel like I have so much to say and I have, so much to share about this. And so I thought that it really helped me to kind of get my voice out there, whether that was through like social media or also, of course, like in real life networking. But that really helped me kind of get my name known amongst editors and to be able to connect with editors who would then assign me stories or assign me different projects and kind of build that expertise, right, and build that like name. So a lot of it was kind of just like, yeah, making sure I develop my own voice and like having that kind of be clear to people who worked in the media landscape.
Yeah, those are great answers. I think what I'm seeing there is kind of expertise and skills building, right, as the through line. You might kind of move a little bit. And Kira, your example in particular, kind of the arts world, and now you're in the arts, but it's on the books, the literary side of things, that these kinds of skills are really transferable. And putting your face and your name in front of people, especially Barnard alums, is never not helpful. So for the 6 of you that have joined us today, you're taking that first step, you're doing it already. I'd love to hear a little bit about, it's kind of 2 questions in one, but I previously asked the panelists to think about something that was unexpected or surprising that they have learned over the course of their career thus far, that you didn't expect, right? You come out of Barnard, you're in an academic setting, and you start to pursue internships, and then you're professional. What's something that just sort of has taken you by surprise, and how have you dealt with it? Has it been welcome? Has it been a challenge? Any thoughts on that?
My answer to this is maybe not the most welcome at the career networking event, but I think I came out of Barnard feeling like the goal that was instilled in us was get a job that was important, put everything into your job, and then you will feel great. And that has not been my experience. So when I talk to Barnard grads, I try to say like, I think there's a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Barnard grads to because we have the education that we got, because we got to the rooms that we got to then carry that forward and bring other people along with you, and all of that is important. And I think your job is it's okay if your job is just your job, and using it as a means to the end that you want, which does not have to be climbing a ladder of success and continuing to strive for more professional success. There's lots of other ways to feel success and help Barnard people. That doesn't mean like getting to the boardroom or whatever.
I agree.
It was like, as the 2 career services professionals in the room, I think we would both co-sign that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Theo, this might be a little bit sort of our generation, I think, as well, but this feeling wedded to the meaning or the mission can absolutely be true. It doesn't have to be, right? Jobs can mean different things for different people. Kira, Isabelia, any thoughts or reactions to what Theo said?
Yeah, it could totally be my like elder millennial baggage as well. So I'm also naming that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to out you. We share something in that way.
I guess one thing that surprised me is like seeing how like this seems silly, but kind of like seeing my own growth and ability to do different things. And sort of like as I've built my career over the years, like being offered different types of opportunities that I frankly never thought that I would have. Whether that is like, I as I said, I was a Mellon Mays Fellow when I was at Barnard, so I was really on the path of becoming an academic. And so kind of being shifting into the world of media was a whole thing, but um it was also just really interesting to see like journalism doesn't have to look like just writing an article, like there are many different forms of journalism and many different forms of storytelling. um Whether that's making a podcast, speaking on camera, doing so many different types of like projects has I think has really been like not only surprising but really enriching because it allows you to like explore your skills in a different context and in a different way.
Yeah, and I resonate with both of these answers. I would say I think Theo's answer about kind of where you find your version of success and alignment in your career, I feel like that um, I feel like that's a big part of my journey reflecting on that. Um, Starting in the gallery space and kind of my only goal to be a curator working with emerging artists of color and looking for the platform to do that. But also looking to find like as quickly like I was very rushed in wanting to find the skills to do that and the platform all at the same time and have it all be happening right now. Um, and there are so many organizations that are doing such amazing work, and also it's a competitive industry in a big and a small city at the same time, and finding your way in a given moment. It's you're not always going to have that clarity, and so um, I have been very lucky to just continue like hopping on these lily pads of places that felt aligned with either the type of artwork that I wanted to be engaging, or the type of people, artist founded galleries that I wanted to be working with and learning from. Um, but yeah, what surprised me is that a big part of the gallery world is that it is a one of I had an interview where this is a storefront. Why do you want to work at a boutique storefront? And I was like, that is so interesting. I had never heard of it being framed that way. That a gallery is a sales-based business. And so when you're there in the day-to-day, um, of course you're engaging with the work, and like there's a value assigned to the creative freedom of the artist at all times, but it's also like something that you're very grounded in is like, who are we selling to and how? Um, and so for me, figuring out like what role do I want to fulfill in this whole ecosystem, that was a very surprising question that I had to face. And joining into the nonprofit spaces, which is where I am now, in a literary nonprofit where um, we're presenting book awards for artists or writers really at all stages. It's we get about 2 or 3 thousand submissions, and the judges read them all. So, some artists are established, some write. I say artists all the time, but some writers are established and some artists aren't. And being in a community of people where um, our work is, we're all very passionate about um, just supporting the process that allows for new works because it's a yearly cycle, so everything's published within the past year, to be platformed, to be seen, and to be um, uplifted and spoken, we have like to be spoken about in a way that allows more people to understand it. I feel like that's a common priority, and I didn't know I would find it in this place. But I've always been interested in kind of the overlap between cultural commentary, academic writing, and the production of art itself, and that's the foundation of my major. And so yeah, long-winded answer, but I think in pursuing a creative career, like finding where your professional skills and your values align, it doesn't always it didn't look the way I expected. Um, but it's been a good journey, good surprise. Yeah.
No, that's a great way, I think, to kind of wrap up that question. The unexpectedness of intersectionality can exist in so many different ways and spaces, and the way you bring skills and knowledge into different kinds of roles seems can be really meaningful. I love that. The title of this particular focus series was Culture and Challenges, right? The media. I think it's easy to think about the media and then think about immediately the challenges that it presents, both in consuming it, right, but also in the production of it. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit about a challenge that you face kind of in your workplace. Large or small, I mean, maybe that someone stole your muffin from the fridge, but maybe not quite that discreet on a day-to-day basis. But what's something that you kind of see as an obstacle, and how do you manage it? Who do you lean on for support? Like what does that look like in a professional setting, right? When students experience challenges in the academic world, there are certain measures, right, to deal with that in terms of going to a TA, going to a faculty member, right? But this is a little bit of a shift. So tell us a little bit about that, if you could.
I have so many challenges. I'm trying to think of how to narrow it. I would say, in terms of support with my current freelance setup, I wonder, Isabelia, if you experience this. Like, it's very strange to be out on your own because you don't have somebody to just like turn to and talk to about stuff. So for me, I have, what did you say, Stephanie? It's not networking, it's community building. My community building is how I find support. I just have connections with folks that I've worked with for many years now, who I lean on in that way. And I think the major challenge that I face right now is just figuring out how to use the skills that I've cultivated over however long I've been doing this, 20 years almost, um, in a world where people are moving toward different ways of consuming media. For podcasts in particular, everybody moving into a video place, short form, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, those being the ways that many people are consuming things now. And me figuring out, as a person who makes long form audio projects, more or less, what are the skills that I have that translate into the things that could serve those audiences. And it's not only like, can I figure out how to get to those audiences, but it's also what am I going to do that feels good to me so that the work that I'm putting out meets meets the moment. And I make everything with intention, right? So how can I like continue to make my work that way, while also realizing that a lot of the ways that I put it out right now aren't how people are consuming things at the moment.
That's great. Meeting yourself and meeting the moment. I like that a lot.
I would say, um, kind of similar to what Theo said, like community is like so, so important when you're navigating challenges, whether that's like friends or family or partners, like I think it's really, really important to, because I think that like working in media is such a particular kind of work that you really that maybe like it's not the same as saying like, oh, my boss chewed me out today or something, to be like, well, 10,000 stands started doxing me on Twitter. There's a bit of a difference there. And so I think that that's one challenge. Like honestly, that was what I was thinking of first, not so much anymore since I'm not as like in the strict journalism space, but kind of dealing with how public all of your thoughts are and all of your contributions are, and open for anybody to comment, disagree, make have their own opinion about. It was something that took me a while to kind of learn how to navigate, how to deal with that, and like mental health wise too, how to like, tune out all the extra noise. And so, yeah, I really relied on like friends and family to help me when I was in these moments where I was like, all these people are saying this about me and I'm stressed out. And, um, it was something that I think I really learned to navigate through like friends and family. So,
It sounds like boundary work in this industry, right, has particular relevance and resonance, something to Yeah, Kira, any thoughts before we?
Yeah, I definitely agree with having a community, leaning on community. Um, um, for me, I think a challenge that I've seen arise in kind of a lot of the different spaces I've worked in is working in small scale environments, places with a team of like less than 10 people, sometimes 3 people, um, sometimes two. Um, and places that don't I mean, right now I'm working at an organization that's existed since I think 1980. But before that, it's always been under 10 years. And so um, that's given me the opportunity to be very involved in so many different parts of a creative organization and learn very quickly. Um, it's also meant a lot of learning on the spot and um, developing a skill set that requires being proactive, build like creating systems, and communicating those systems to others. Um, whether you're supervising someone or just creating a production plan for the next 3 months, for a project, that has never been created before in the history of where you work. Um, so being, this, I think I started since college. So since, let's say, about 21, 22, I've um, been in positions where like I had to develop not only like just confidence, but problem solving skills. And I've come back to my friends who, are also working in the city and other orgs, or my family, and or even just coworkers and the artists that I'm working with, and just kind of have other people that can understand and make you feel grounded in the choices that you're making when everything is so new. Um, that's been essential for me to keep going, and to just become like a stronger person in this world. So um, yeah, that's been, something that's a challenge, and also has definitely shown me who and where to lean on, and how important it is to lean on others too.
Thanks. Those were great. I think I kind of wanted to put forth this question because I see so much Barnard students in our office, Theo, as you were saying, just with the weight of the world on their shoulders and this drive and this high performance. You come to Barnard for a reason. You graduate from Barnard for a reason. And my goodness, there are support systems. Please use them. That's certainly true here on campus, and it continues to be true right after you graduate. And you're all examples of that. Before we turn it over to questions from the students, I'd ask you to think about a big growth moment. I'll kind of recast that as something you're super proud of. Could be big or small. Something that you watched here, you mentioned like putting systems into place that have never existed before. Noticing there, maybe you're proud of that. What's something that you've done that you feel like has just had meaning for you? And it could be professional meaning, it could be personal meaning. You might have, it could be anything. Something cool that you've done.
I have one. I think, well, between two, I would say one of the things that I always say I was very proud of was that when I was working as a contributing editor at Pitchfork, we published the first story in Spanish on the website. It was like a bilingual accompaniment to a piece that was a kind of about the history of uh, several different genres. It was about like reggaeton. It was about hip hop in Spanish. It was kind of just like an overview, like a historical overview. Um, but I always felt like that was like a really important moment because I felt that like I knew that there was such a huge audience for this type of music in Spanish as well. And I thought that it only made sense to have that information available in Spanish too. So I really fought to make sure that that was available in both English and Spanish. And I think also after having spent a lot of my career having to like fight for the importance of this music and like the cultural relevance. I've been thinking about it a lot this week with Bad Bunny, but like sort of spending my whole career trying to explain to editors and people in the industry why this matters and why it's worth covering. And that it's not a niche, that it's like a huge, it's part of the conversation of pop music in general. um to be able to like have that impact and say like we're telling the history of this music in Spanish too it was a really gratifying moment, I would say.
I mean, gratifying. It's huge. It's huge. I feel like you're really underselling it. I'm so pleased to be able to listen to you talk about this. It's Bad Money News is big in the office as well. Pretty excited about it. I would love.
Oh,
Yeah,
I was
go.
just gonna say I'm in the middle of one. I'm going from when it comes to growth, I'm going from my freelance life, and I out of the blue got an offer to do a full-time gig, which I'm gonna do in a month. And it's happy, it's sad. There's like a lot of feelings. So I'm taking the next couple of weeks to sort of like process some of those. And so I'm feeling, yeah, the things I want to process around are like feeling proud that I like made this freelance thing work, support my family, make good work, and also try to hold on to the like freedom that I felt from that as I go into a full-time job and keep the growth, like no, nothing's linear, but like I literally just wrote down on a piece of paper, don't overwork in advance. This is my this is my goal for my next job. You know how everybody's like, don't obey in advance. This is mine. Don't overwork in advance.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that's like sticky note, deserving level on the monitor screen type of comment. Love that. Let's do it. Let's turn it over. The students that are here, you have kind of unprecedented access right now for the next 20 or so minutes to these three phenomenal alums. What do you want to ask them? Do it.
I have a kind of a general question. I'm just curious, like the idea of working in media, like it seems very intimidating to me. So I'm curious, like, how do you start? Like, what kind of jobs do you get right out of college?
I can share mine. I'm happy, excited to hear what Isabelia says too. For me, I did internships when I was in college, so I didn't really, like I said, didn't really know how to be a journalist. It was like very confusing. So I just sort of tried out different internships while I was in school. Like, um, I worked at the mayor's office, so I saw the sort of other side of press. It was like, oh, this is how communication works, and saw how people write press releases and how they gather information from the media to give to public officials. That I had an internship at ABC News that was more video focused. So it was like, oh, am I interested in that medium? And then I landed on audio after doing an internship at WNYC. And so once I tried those out, then I could kind of get a feel for, okay, what do I like to do? What can I do? And then I could build up my resume from there.
Yeah, I didn't do any internships related to journalism in college. I did do a music related internship. I worked at a record label for about a year during my senior year. And that was gave me kind of like a different view of the music industry in general, more on the business side of things than in media. Um, but honestly, I feel like because I made the transition from thinking I was going into academia to media, I had to really think about how to break in. Like I didn't know how to break in. And a lot of it was thinking about how to sort of communicate my skill set in a way that made sense in the context of journalism, because so much of what I was doing in academia was already very much, is something that you do every day in journalism, research, interviews, you know, critical analysis, like all of those things were things that I was doing in my academic research already. And so I had to learn how to kind of like translate that into like a journalistic environment and like frankly like sell it to people in who like and tell people like yes I can do this even though it's from a different context. So a lot of that.
Yeah, I started with internships during my undergrad period. And even that, I might have, my memory is a little bit foggy. I know that I applied to some more like established organizations in New York, and I think it's that I picked Larry instead, which was like a not as established. Um, so the opportunities, because I started at Larry as like a gallery assistant intern, and before that it was the Spike Art magazine, and a lot of that was the cold emailing, the going to the events, and kind of breaching like a barrier that I felt there was, even whether it was there or not, I felt like there was a barrier between me and the industry and breaking in and having anything to offer. Um, and so it took, networking for me, it's intimidating, and I kind of just like brought my passion and tried to start conversations with people. Um, and those unpaid or like, yeah, they were definitely unpaid. Those unpaid experiences, I do think they um for better or for worse in the way that the world works, they gave me a little bit of experience and insight and something to put on paper that kind of kept me moving forward in that space. But yeah, I would say I do think that depending on what you're interested in, kind of developing a strong identity, like no matter what you've done, you've done things that align with what you're passionate about, especially because you're in school and you're pursuing your studies. And so I think being able to represent what you're interested in and why you're interested in it, I think um, that was always my starting point when I didn't really know what I was doing or how I was going to get where I was trying to go.
You're all kind of the poster children for the stuff that we're always talking about, which is internships, internships, internships. You are not married to them. You can have them in different areas and lanes. The point of them is to get a bite-sized experience and for you to say, nope, this isn't for me. I want to pursue something else. It's the best thing about them. Unpaid, not paid, please, Beyond Barnard has a variety of funded programs, right? That this is especially in these industries and small nonprofits, galleries, and in this sort of general art world, it'd be super, super difficult. And cold emailing and networking, right? And these things are true kind of across, but I think especially true in this industry. And that recouching, Isabelia, you were talking about that recouching of your skill set and how you apply it. That's rhetoric, right? You are at a liberal arts college and you're learning how to manage reading and writing that way. You can totally do it with your skill set. It's very true. Other questions? Love this. Oh, no reason to be bashful. No silly questions, promise. No one's forced. I would, if the panelists are willing, if you could drop your email into the chat, if you're willing to be contacted by any of the students here, that'd be fantastic. If not, that's fine too. They can be in touch with you on LinkedIn and other ways. Anything we didn't cover, panelists, that you would just really love your college age self to know that you'd like to share? A major do, a major don't.
I feel like it's okay not to know sometimes. It's so okay not to know. Like, I think that as we kind of discussed at the beginning, um, students at Barnard are just so driven and so, they carry the weight of the world on them. And I feel like when I was leaving college, I had to like have a plan to know exactly what I was doing immediately. And like, this is my 5-year plan and I'm going to do this. And by the age of this, I'm going to, um, and I just feel like it's really important to have grace for yourself, like to really, it's like, it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know if like what your career is going to look like in 5 years. Like, I think it's like, be open to experiences, be open to opportunities, um, because the world will change your plans. It will. And I just feel like I wanted my college age self to know that like things will look different than you think, and that is totally fine.
Plus one to that, and that while you're where you are, you won't likely have the experience again of, I dream about like opening up the course catalog and looking at all the options. Like, Kira, when you talk about art history, I'm like, oh, if I could go back, I would just go right there. Like to yes, think about the things that we're talking about and yes, engage with Beyond Barnard and the internships and that, but you also just won't have an opportunity to do all the college things that you can do right now, likely again. So I would try to tell my college age self that yeah, take a little of the pressure off, like we've been saying, and do the things that you can do right there and then that you won't get the chance to do again.
Yeah, I can just echo that. Because I know that during my college career, it was such a space of experimentation, freedom, time to be able to explore like 10 different interests at once. Um, and kind of hold my own standard to what felt meaningful to me. Um, so like an internship could be a version of that, but also like a personal art project, a club, things you do with your friends, things you do in the city while you get to be here, and not have to deal with all the adulting things that come with it. Um, it is like such a fruitful time and opportunity to be able to invest in yourself. Um, and the skills that you build that are just for you, like those are the things that are going to last the longest, I feel. Um, and so yeah, I encourage that energy for all of you.
That's so lovely. I love that, creating your own standards. It's really great. So many good things to think about. Anything else? We've got a few more minutes on the Zoom. Any other last bits? All right. Well, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you to the panelists for joining us from Maine, Brooklyn, and Mexico City.
Yeah. Yes.
Really, it's just such a pleasure. And please, I hope you've snagged the emails in the chat for the students that are here. If you want to be in touch with our very generous alums, we'll circulate a recording of this afterwards. Yeah. Many, many thanks all. Have a really great afternoon. Stay warm or stay cool, depending on where you are.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.